So hey there, my name is sjofors. A weird name, I know. Makes perfect sense in my native Sweden, but it's a little unusual here in the US. So I typically go by the moniker the Price Whisperer. And I got that moniker many years ago, partly because because people couldn't pronounce or spell my name. So if you want to find out who the Price Whisperer is, just Google me and you get a million hits or thereabouts. And today I want to talk about pricing research and the mistakes that many companies do when they do pricing research. And obviously, if you don't do the research correct, it's going to give you false information, wrong information. It's not going to be as helpful as it could be. It may even be detrimental to your company. So so let's start here. First off, let's define what is pricing research. Well, pricing research is it's market research specifically done on pricing. So in market research, you measure what an audience is willing to pay, and there are different ways of doing that. Some are better than others, and from that, companies get a sense of where their pricing should be, and in many cases, it can replace the gut feel, the cost plus, the look at a competitor price and so forth, and in most cases, pricing research and when it's acted upon, it really can elevate a company to the next level. Doubling the size of the company is not unusual if the company acts on the pricing research results, right? So anyway, I want to talk about some mistakes folks do when they do pricing research. And the first mistake is simply to ask the wrong questions. And you may think about this and say, but in our company, we've been in business for 10 years, we've been in business for 20 years, we know our customers. Well, and because we know what's important to our customers, of course we will answer the right questions. But the point here is using the words we know our customers. Yes, you know your customers, but you don't know your non-customers, right? And the whole point with pricing research is not only to get a better understanding of your customers and understand how you can price better to your customers. It is about understanding how you can expand your market and get those individuals or companies who are not your customers to buy your product or service. Because obviously that is what growth going to come from. And if you ask questions that are only relevant to your customers, you're not going to capture much of that information from your non-customers, right? And it has to do a lot with that many companies, actually all companies, live in some kind of bubble, right? Where you go to market with a certain value proposition. Some of that market will accept your value proposition, and some of those that accept the value proposition will become customers. So if you ask those, what is the value proposition? If you ask those, what are you willing to pay? You will hear back what you already market with them, and you will hear back the prices that you already have. And the whole point of market pricing research is to find what those that's not your customers, what they care about and what they are willing to pay, so you can price for them, because that's where growth is going to come from. And this goes into my my second mistake, which is targeting the wrong audience. Again, if your audience for the pricing research is only your customers, you're going to get some insights, and some of that insights is going to be really valuable. Some of it is, again, just an echo chamber. It will tell you what you already know, right? And let me give you an example of that. A company that develops they develop medicine for clinical trials. So specifically, they do very small batches of medicine, because obviously in the clinical trials you don't need truckloads of medicines. You need just a few bottles or whatever, right? And the company, these medicines are made in basically you brew them as you brew beer in some way, with big vats full of bacteria and stuff. And the company had this idea that the main optimum size of these batches are 2,000 liters. The company is US based, but they're metric, so it's 2,000 liters. And they said the whole market wants 2,000 liters, and anything else is just peanuts. It's not worthwhile for us to capture. But of course, in the pricing research we did, we went out to the entire market, not their customers, and what we found was that only about a quarter of the market cared for 2,000 liter batches. They wanted 500 liter batches, they wanted 1,000 liter batches, a quarter of them wanted 2,000 liter batches, and people wanted 5,000 liter batches. So this company was not aware of 3/4 of the market that they could address, right? Because they only talked to their customers, right? So the key when you do pricing research is to go to the entire addressable market, right? Not only your customers. Secondly, a next mistake is to rely on research that is done by from researchers that are using your competition. So the problem is that when you have these research agencies that are very focused on a particular niche industry, they work for all the competitors in that industry. The research itself tend to be very similar for each research occasion, and the result and the recommendations also tend to be very similar. And this leads to commoditization, because all the competitors in a market will position themselves based on the same research. They will price themselves similar based on the same research. They will use the same value statements and marketing as what the research says, and this all goes the same. Obviously, if you buy generic market research, all the competitors have access to the same market research, and they all then go to market in very similar ways, creating a commodity. And a commodity, as we all know, is sold on low price only. It's not sold on value, right? So using generic research or using agencies that focus only on a very narrow industry leads to recommendations that leads to commoditization. Not what you want, right? The next mistake is that, you do pricing research. Part of that is to measure willingness to pay, to inform pricing. But this needs to be segmented, right? You need to segment that pricing information by different customer profiles, by different marketing messages, by different marketing channels, by different product features or service features, and yada, yada, yada. It's only when you do that segmentation, this is going to give you the information that you need to drive your company to the next level, right? Without segmentation, and you have, one recommendation saying that this is what the market wants to pay, it's not good enough, because certain segments are willing to pay different than other segments or personas or avatars or whatever you want to call these customer segments. So it always have to be segmented, right? The next mistake is revealing the company's identity. Why is this important then? Why? Well, it's really important because there is a little term here that many people are familiar with called buyer liar. And if you do these pricing research projects and the respondents can figure out who you are, they're going to lie, right? And some companies go out and say, even they say, this is the research we, company XYZ, is doing for our market. They just shot themselves in the foot, right? Because it means that some of the respondents, and I'm always assuming an online survey here, some of the respondents will blatantly lie because they think that if the company get a wrong opinion about why they buy and how they want to buy and how they want to pay, it will benefit them for the next time when they buy from the same company. Some respondents will answer the questions the way they think the company wants to hear it, right? Almost all respondents withhold information that they think is of value for the company the next time they do business with the same company. So they, as buyers, are going to be in a less advantaged position, right? And so anonymous pricing research is always required. And sometimes you can companies are stupid, and maybe they're using the specific terms of their product or their service, right? That nobody else use. So somebody in the market will understand, oh, this survey is done by company X. Now I know how to answer, right? So very important. And then finally, one of the mistakes many companies do when they do pricing research is that they're not making it practical enough, right? You get a report, whatever, from the agencies that talks a lot about what the data is, right? The X Y, the X versus Y, the and so forth. The price of this and the price of that. But there's no conclusions. It's just a lot of data. And if you can't take these pricing projects to the next level and develop conclusions, practical recommendations of what to do now, how can we target different customers, how can we do our marketing better, how can we do our sales better, and into an action plan. This needs to do by this person by that date. If you don't have that information, it's a doorstop, right? Because you in a company rarely have time to engage yourself in such a detail that all of this can be developed internally. You really have to use an agency. And obviously an agency that not only know this, but also can take knowledge from other industries and transpose those to your industries. Knowledge from other situations and transpose to your industry. Things that you couldn't do if you try to do it all internally, right? Anyway, now I've been talking for a long time, so I hope you found this of some value. And check me out. Do a Google search for The Price Whisperer. You're going to find my writings, my book, obviously my YouTube channel where you see me. Subscribe on my YouTube channel, please. I'm doing a video like this about once a week, and it's all about being practical in the end, right? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm looking forward to see you the next time. Thank you so much, and you take care now. Bye.